Welcome to the channel. In this video, we are going to be looking at the number 97s, or the cabinet maker's trimming plane, also known as a chisel plane. So I have the Nielsen and the Veritas, and we're going to take a look at them side by side to review their different specs. Now, what is a cabinet maker's trimming plane? It's a chisel, a glorified chisel on a plane body. Do you need one? No. Does it come in handy? Absolutely. They do pretty much everything a chisel does, but I use mine when a chisel is difficult or awkward to use or even impossible to use sometimes. Like getting into the back of a corner of a carcass. Sometimes it's easier to use them to trim up a drawer slide, that kind of stuff. They also work really well at trimming dowels, trimming inlays. I've seen some people use them to smooth rabbets or rebates. So again, you don't need one. I like having mine, but on that note, I'm not going to show you them side by side in operation because it's a chisel. And I don't know what that would benefit, showing them, trimming a couple dowels because it's a chisel. But Nielsen and Veritas both make these, and they both have different features. So if you are thinking about getting one, check this out because it might help you make your decision. Now, I don't know that I'm going to be able to say that one of them won over the other because it's a glorified chisel. Stick with me. So here they are side by side. As you can see, the Nielsen is made out of bronze. The Veritas is made out of ductile iron. Both of these are great choices in my opinion. If you don't know about ductile iron, it's one of those irons that if you drop on the floor, it doesn't break. So it's a huge improvement over the old Stanley cast iron. I also think that bronze is the same way, but I'm definitely not going to test that out. I don't know that I've ever seen a bronze plane broken. So if you have, let me know in the comments down below. Weight-wise, the Nielsen is 4 ounces heavier, coming in at 1 pound 7 ounces, and the Veritas is 1 pound 3 ounces. They are both 6.5 inches long, technically. When you look at the Veritas website, it says 6.5 inches long, but it's actually 6 7/16. It's 1/16 shorter than what they say, but who's asking? Width-wise, they are both 1 3/4. The iron metal type. Veritas you can only get in 01. They don't offer it in the A2 or the PMV11. Nielsen, if the iron is not marked Nielsen, then it's 01. If it is marked, then it's A2. Now, in my opinion, I prefer 01 when it comes to jointery type planes because I would rather this edge like fold over, bend, break something versus it tearing out that piece of wood, especially when it comes to those really tight fitting joints that you need. I'm not going to get into that argument, though. I'm not going to start it here. That's another video. Let's look at the caps. Now, you're going to see the Veritas is significantly smaller, but the iron is. So I am not concerned at all with the cap size difference here. They are both appropriate for the size iron that they have.
Just don't lose the Veritas because it's really small.
Now, looking at the irons, as you can see, the Veritas tapers away from the cutting edge and the Nielsen stays the same. I don't believe that this makes any difference at all because it's a glorified chisel, so it doesn't matter. If you guys are enjoying this video, feel free to check out a link in the description. I'm doing that buy me a coffee thing. Also, if you are a newer woodworking, need somebody to bounce ideas off of, get guidance from, whatever, I'm offering memberships there as well. And then, of course, like and subscribe. Now, sticking to the chisel theme, this is a firmer chisel. This is a bevel-edged bench chisel. I like bevel-edged for getting into corners, getting into 90-degree joints, that kind of stuff. But if you like firmer chisels for that, then there you go. The only other thing to note right now is the Veritas doesn't have a lot of life in the iron where the Nielsen does. I'd say Nielsen almost has double the life. But again, this is a luxury item that you're not going to use very often. If it is something that you are going to be using very often, then the Nielsen has more life, and you might want to take that into consideration. Thickness-wise, the Nielsen is 3/16, the Veritas is 1/8. So the Lee-Nielsen is 1/16 thicker than the Veritas. And as you know, thicker irons help reduce chatter. So here are the irons side by side. Now, when you look at the beds of these planes, Lee-Nielsen has a lot more support up here and in the back, but it needs to. Veritas only has this little nib, but it doesn't need more than that, because when I slap the Veritas iron on here, it's only touching back here and up here. It doesn't even need all this. So in my opinion, both of these planes have the appropriate amount of support for the iron shape that they have. The only other thing that I want to mention about this part of the plane is the depth adjust here. If you guys have the Lee-Nielsen low-angle jack planes, the lateral tends to get adjusted when you adjust the depth. I've noticed it a lot, and it can be a pain. If you guys have this issue and you figured out a way to fix it, please let me know, because I haven't figured out a way to fix it. And I don't think I'm going to be able to show you, but as I adjust this, try watching just this corner. See it go to the side, and then it goes back, goes to the side, goes back. That still happens when the cap is on. It's just not as dramatic, but it still adjusts it.
I don't know, let me see. See it?
So as you can see, there's lateral play whenever you adjust the depth on this. Now, that's one flaw on this plane, but if you figure out a way around it, so adjust your depth, adjust your lateral, tighten the cap down, then you're good to go. Just know that every time you adjust this, you're going to have to wrap tap it back into place. On that note, the Lee-Nielsen, you can wrap tap the side. So if you get a little plane adjust hammer, you can adjust the lateral here. With the Veritas, you can't, because there's no room. So see that up there? That's that little nib right there is the only thing you'd be able to hit, so you really can't. But you don't need to on this one, because look at the lateral here. That's with these set screws loose. I'll get into those in a minute, but here's the lateral here. And then the Lee-Nielsen, it kind of goes all over the place because it's resting in here and on this, where the Veritas has these set screws. So let me show you those. So there's two set screws there. See them on that side. And then there's two here. See them on that side. So if you tighten those down, you can have zero lateral movement in the Veritas. Just make sure that you get it perfectly square, set those set screws, and then you're good to go. Some guys actually use the set screws to adjust the lateral and get it perfectly square. They adjust them until it's where they want it. And then what they can do is you can take this iron out, sharpen it, put it back, and it's exactly where it needs to go. So to me, that is a huge bonus to this plane. But if you like wrap tapping, then obviously this is the way to go. Now, I mentioned the flaw about the Lee-Nielsen depth adjustment and how that changes the lateral adjust on the iron. But I also feel that the Veritas has an issue with their depth adjustment too, because it's this little nib right there. So if you put this iron in here and you lock the cap down, you're putting a lot of force on this little tiny piece of metal. So that, to me, I feel like this could break if you're not careful. What I'd recommend is adjusting the depth and then locking your cap down on it. I don't know if that's actually what you're supposed to do, but that's what I tend to do with these things, and it helps. The only other thing I want to mention about these planes is the knobs. So if you know anything about Lee-Nielsen, they basically look exactly like Stanley's. They only improved a couple things. So they made it out of bronze, created more support. I have a whole series that's looking at Lee-Nielsen and Stanley planes. Check those ones out. I'll put a little card thing in the corner. But this is identical to Stanley's. And they kept the knob the same. And I'm not happy that they kept the knob the same because Veritas angled it, which just makes it so much easier to push. I mean, when you think about it, you're right here, and there it is. You're pushing. With the Lee-Nielsen, you're not really there. It feels like you want to be on top of it. So that's another significant change that I like about the Veritas more. I didn't measure these knobs or anything like that, but I'll take them off and show you because the Lee-Nielsens can be customized. The Veritas, it would be kind of tricky. So hold on one sec. All right, so here are the two knobs. Significant size difference, but it doesn't matter because the angle is different. So Veritas is more like that. Lee Nielsen's is up and down. So there's those two. Now, I was mentioning about customizing. A lot of people like to change out their hardware and turn them into different things. Like, I'm working with a buddy right now to get a lot of my hand planes with a Bacote tote and knob just because it's cool, and go for it. The Lee Nielsen, you can do that because it's just a screw that just goes into here and then it ties into the body there. The Veritas is actually, you would have to get one of those threaded inserts to to be able to redo this. You'd have to get a threaded insert that matches this and then insert that into the knob. So just a little bit trickier. I mean, you probably could still customize it, but Lee Nielsen's is a lot easier too. So there you have it. It really is just coming down to preference because it is a glorified chisel. If you guys like the bigger iron of the Lee Nielsen, you like the bronze, you like being able to wrap tap with a hammer, then go for Lee Nielsen. If you guys like the angle of the tote better, you like the set screws for the Veritas, then go with Veritas. I'm personally leaning towards Veritas because of that handle and because of the set screws, but I am a little nervous about that depth adjuster. So what I think I'm going to do is put the iron in, snug the cap up, then adjust the depth and really snug it up. If you guys have this plane and you're able to tighten the cap down all the way and then adjust the depth and you don't have any issues, feel free to let us know down below. The depth adjust for the Lee Nielsen, if you guys have this plane or the low angle planes and you don't have an issue with the lateral moving when you adjust the depth, please let me know down below too, because that is pretty annoying. But again, preference, make your choice. You got to see them. I hope you guys like this video. Like and subscribe, and then I'm doing that buy me a coffee thing down in the description. It's the same thing as Patreon, but Patreon takes a lot more fees from you guys and from me, so that's why I went with the buy me a coffee. I don't know if it's newer or not, but either way, check that out down below. Keep an eye out for more videos, and have a good one. Thanks.